and taking out time. Very interesting and important session today. And I think for all the forward-looking members, all the ones who are looking at technology, who want to get involved in technology in the field of finance, I think an excellent session for you to attend. And today we have with us one of our own senior members from Sri Lanka who's joined us, Jihan. And Jihan is a fellow chartered certified accountant, and he currently serves as the CEO of Informate Private Limited and Vice President John Keel's Holding PLC. Jihan has a total of about 25 years of corporate experience, which is quite a significant amount of time. And he serves as the vice chairman of ACCA's member network panel in Sri Lanka as well, and a vice chair of SLASCOM also. So I think with that many credentials, I think Jihan is best placed to talk about the subject. So I'm afraid you will not be able to see Jihan today. His camera not functioning, and that's something that we were trying to figure out. But nevertheless, he's available in the meeting, in the webinar today. And shortly after this, I'll hand over to him. You'll be able to hear him out as well. So, Jihan, if I may hand it over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Harun. I do apologize. I'm just recovering from a bout of COVID. So my voice has still not got back to 100%, but it is my privilege.
Well, soon, Jihan. Very concerned to hear that. But I hope
thank you for my privilege. Thank you for your understanding. It's my privilege and honor to address so many of you in the ACCA fraternity in the region. Wherever I come across my fellow ACCA members, it always fills me with a sense of pride because we share the same values, the same ethics, the same outlook on our profession, and the same excitement when it comes to ACCA and discussing developments in our very, very noble profession. I was privileged some months ago, some years ago actually, to visit the ACCA head office and see some of the pieces of history on the wall, and it really filled me with a lot of pride. So despite the fact that we have from different countries, from all happy to be addressing you today. So I'd like to just share a little bit of my background. So I worked in one company, the John Keel's Group, one of Sri Lanka's premier conglomerates, 25 years. And I've been part of the first shared services center in Sri Lanka called Informate now for 17 years. So the goal was to standardize processes across these 60 subsidiaries that make up the John Keel's Group, and for us to be able to get the best out of our ERP system. And even way back 17 years ago, we had the goal to bring in the best of technology and the best of automation. A lot of the automation that we speak of today was not available at that time, but that vision was there. So I think being in a shared services environment really equips you with a lot of experience about how the finance function is moving in terms of technology. So the first thing that I would like to encourage all of you is about the ERP system. It all starts there. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because still ERP systems being quite mature, we are still not making the best use of what the ERP could offer. Now, myself, the company that I work for, and several companies in Sri Lanka, we are using the SAP platform. Your companies could be a mix of Oracle, of JD Edwards, of Microsoft Dynamics, and a multitude of systems. Be that as it may, the principles are very much the same. And I still find that very often we are not making full use of the huge potential and capabilities that systems like SAP offer. I recently did a presentation titled Optimizing Your ROI on your SAP or on your ERP investment. And we did a breakfast meeting. We spoke to a SAP user group in Australia, and different companies, different industries, different parts of the world. But the overwhelming sense that I got is everyone has the same problem. They are using only a fraction of the capability of the ERP system. And very often, we find that people are finding various manual interventions, including Excel sheets. Now, hands up if you can identify with this situation. But a consultant that I spoke to was laughingly referring to Excel as the best ERP system, because so much of what we do finally ends up on Excel. And very, very big companies are doing even their primary financial statements on Excel. So that is not making good use of the ERP system. So the first thing that I would like to share with you in terms of your use of technology is to make sure this is something that we should not be speaking of in 2022, but I believe it is still very much a relevant point. You must get your ERP system sorted. Right? We must have the ERP system working to the best advantage. We must have the reporting coming out of the ERP system, because what happens when you start using workarounds and doing all this reporting on Excel, one thing is in terms of controls, it can be compromised. People can falsify information. How do you know it is correct? And we can all identify with the situation where we say, someone questions this number and they say it's a formula error. That's what happens on Excel. A big apparel company that is using a ERP system, in fact, they were looking at banning Excel just to take it out and make sure that people use the system and use the reporting from the system. So I would like you to, as finance professionals, go back and check the use of your ERP systems. Then ERP systems have a lot of functionality when it comes to electronic bank reconciliations, automatic payment runs. When it comes to invoice purchasing, are you using purchase orders? Right, a big company that I have privilege to work with, they have this policy saying no PO, no payment. Are we using three-way matching? And the companies that I've met, some of them very, very big brand names in different parts of the world, I find these things are not being used. We are doing, for instance, non-purchase, non-PO invoices, supply invoices. So the dangers of that as finance professionals is, when you're accounting without a PO, you can account for a supply invoice of $50,000, you can accidentally add a zero, right? And the system will take it in. Whereas if you have the PO and the matching GRN and the invoice, you have a tolerance limit beyond which the system will block. It will not allow you to post. You have so many other control weaknesses with non-PO invoices. You can, for instance, intend to pay supplier A, but inadvertently pay a completely different supplier. So this could result in cost to the organization, and you are not making the best use of the ERP functionality. So some of the things that I would like you to test out would be the percentage of PO-based invoices. It should be 90% plus at least. Are your bank recs electronic? Are you using automatic payment runs? Are your reports coming from the ERP system? And it really shocks me to find even very basic reports today, things like debtors and creditors being done on Excel, or you are not getting the full information from the ERP system. You need to be able to do some slicing and dicing again on Excel. Your primary financial statements must come from the ERP system, and hold the consultants project champion to make sure that these you have a checklist, and that someone drives this over a period of time. Sometimes it may not be possible to have all of these in a week or in a month or even in a year. Sometimes you might need to have an 18 to 24 month plan, during which you consistently follow up and make sure all of these boxes are ticked. So I would strongly recommend that you go back and check out your ERP systems. Make sure you are getting the best out of your ERP system. The second aspect that I would like to dwell a little bit on is your procure to pay system, which tends to be one of the most voluminous processes. A company that I've seen in Sri Lanka, they have about 60% of the invoices being processed without human intervention. So OCR, optical character recognition, is being used to read in invoices and process these directly into the system. There are also very sophisticated systems where you have ERP to ERP, from the supplier's ERP, the invoice flows electronically into the customer system. It's automatically read in, and the entire AP process happens without human intervention. I was visiting HP's shared services in India way back, possibly about 15 years ago, and even there, 15 years ago, 90% of their accounts payable happened without human intervention. So there's a lot of automation possible in the procure to pay process. This is a area that I see globally is being automated, and the days of entering invoices with a lot of human intervention, with a lot of manpower, are behind us. So I would recommend looking at the accounts payable process very closely. Next, moving on to one of the hottest new technologies, which is really revolutionizing finance, is RPA, robotic process automation. It is increasingly being called today intelligent automation. So there is a range of tools. UiPath is one of the ones that I am familiar with, widely used in Sri Lanka. I think it's one of the best platforms. You have Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, and a range of other RPA platforms. Now, RPA has the potential of making a finance person's life a much more fulfilling, much more exciting role. Because today, if you look at, still there is a range of manual tasks that we perform, very repetitive, very routine, and with each of you being ACCA members, having so many skills, we need to be able to spend quality time in thinking. If I were to ask you how many of you have time to spend time on things like advising on pricing strategies, or negotiating with banks, on looking at finance strategy, different funding options, very often the time that we have is quite limited, because we are so busy with closing the books, making sure your accounts are accurate, handling audit queries, handling bank reconciliations. But the truth is, a lot of these can be automated. So RPA, there's a lot of hype about it. A lot of companies have attempted it, some of them with a lot of success, Some of them have been disappointed also. But I would really recommend that this is something that we need to try, because if we don't get into this, if we don't embrace RPA, we will be left behind. And it can be done. However, there are flaws in implementation, and sometimes the users don't approach RPA projects well. And I've seen several projects fail or end up with suboptimal results, and the outcomes expected are not delivered. So let me share a little bit of the story that I have seen. We started off with a very small project, and I think that's a one way to get our foot in. Try it with a small project. We took a bank reconciliation project where we have several hundred bank statements which we download from the bank. We key in a password, we upload it into another system. Some of these are email. So that was one FT worth of work, not the most exciting job. And we got a bot doing that. And we had payback within about 9 months. It was very, very successful. That bot continues to run today. And the advantages of RPA is the bot works 24/7. Once you code it in, it does not stop. It's like a ghost that is working. Even in the night, you see the machine working, sending emails, downloading files. It really is a fascinating sight whenever I pass the bot, because you can see the machine working, no one sitting at it. So that gave us a lot of confidence. Then we tried automating our payroll process. That was a more difficult project. The outcome was less successful, but we did achieve. There was a overrun in the project. We spent more time than we anticipated, more budget than we anticipated, but we did achieve something. And I don't regret any of these, because new technologies, you've got to try, you've got to be willing to fail. Some of these may not be 100% successful. That's okay. Unless you try, you will not get anywhere. When we come to the end of our career, what we will regret is the things that we didn't try, as opposed to the things that we tried and failed. So new technologies, I would recommend start small, learn on doing it, build confidence. Then we tried automating our GL entry process. We tried automating our bank reconciliations. Several of my colleagues from the BPO industry have successfully rolled out bots for their procure to pay process. And there are so many other small processes, for instance, where you look at your exchange rate, updating your exchange rate in a table, downloading material from one system to another. So there could be so many mini projects that consume valuable human resources time, where you can quickly automate. And some of these projects you can probably turn around in a couple of weeks. Right? So it's not huge, long traditional IT projects. It's a much more iterative process, quick wins, where the developer sits with you and turns around something very fast. So RPA is a technology that will really revolutionize the finance and the accounting process, and we must embrace it, because if we get it right, and it may take a few years, because I think the technology is still maturing, and the implementation partners are still learning. The RPA skills are not very much available in terms of numbers and capacity, but we must start somewhere. And I think in a couple of years, what will happen is, those who adopt it first, we will find a lot of space for the strategic finance element. If you look at the finance function as a pyramid, I think all the predictions, all the forecasts, is the bottom layer of transaction intensive work will get automated. Part of the middle tier of budgeting, of management reports, will also get automated. So as wise, forward-looking finance professionals, I would urge you to focus on the strategic element of finance. on risk management, on finance strategy, on advisory. Aim to be the principal advisor to the CEO. That's the sort of dynamic, very exciting role that finance can aim to be, and allow automation and bots to be able to do a lot of the manual work, so that you are freed up, that you are relieved a lot of the transaction intensive work. An interesting statistic is that several CEOs now are emerging from the CFO community, because the CFO is the primary advisor, someone who is very closely involved with business, who sees the future, who predicts the future, who looks at option, who advises on risk. And finally, the boards are really seeing that the CFO can be a natural transition into the CEO. So the future, and that's very much how ACCA is also focusing on training and developing our finance professionals. So we have a very exciting career ahead of us if we can free ourselves up from the more mundane elements of our task. So just to recap, we covered ERP systems. It's very much the basics. It should be in place, but it's not. Number 2 is robotic process automation. The next element that I would like to take is data science. I was listening to Aubrey Joachim, who was a Sri Lankan former head of a global accounting body. And he made a very strong statement. He said, accountants are going to be data scientists in the future. So he thinks that there is a natural progression from accounting to data science. And I think definitely there will be many elements of data science and how we use data that will influence the accounting career. So in that aspect, the first stage of data science is being able to visualize data properly. And Power BI is a fantastic tool. There are many, Tableau and many others, but the one that we use here is Power BI. It's a fantastic tool to really learn. And you can start visualizing data in new and very creative ways. And believe me, your board and your leadership will really enjoy the new visuals that you can present through Power BI. So I really encourage all of you to learn. In fact, Microsoft has a 3-month program or where you can get certification in Power BI. ACCA has a program on data science. So I really encourage you to adopt these, to learn these tools. The next stage of data science is making a connection between different data elements. So finding relationships. And as you start to analyze data, and today we are capturing so much of data, there is a lot of scope for that. So in the John Keel's group, we have started a large project called Project Octave that's being done with the McKinsey group, and where we are looking at several case studies, including in the retail industry and in the insurance business. And in the retail industry, they are analyzing things like purchase patterns, top customers. They're looking at relationships between data, and they're finding new and creative ways to encourage spending, the use of discounts. There's this famous story of, it didn't happen with the Keels, but in another, where they found a correlation between people buying diapers and people buying beer. Unusual correlation. And when they studied this, they found that it was young dads who had little babies back home, and they were anticipating a long night of looking after the kids, so they would supply themselves with adequate stocks of beer. unusual relationship. So the company started stacking these two items together. So there's a lot that you can do, whatever your business, with data. And as finance people, if we can start advising operations and our leadership about different data trends, right? So the first thing in data science is visualizing. The second stage is in making relationships. The third stage is in predictive analysis, in forecasting, in showing, extrapolating trends, and being able to paint a picture of the future. And this is where I think there will be tremendous value that you can create for your business. It's information. I think the gold is in the information. That's why it's called the new oil, data. What you can do with data is limitless. And the possibilities today, as we are collecting more and more data, is very, very exciting. It can give rise to new business models. A company that I was speaking to in Sri Lanka, they were talking about the analysis they were doing on their HR data. They were looking at attrition trends, and they were able to forecast based on certain tenure and certain questions that the employees ask, and certain few other variables of the likelihood of this person resigning. Now you can see how useful that type of information is to reduce attrition. Now previously we would look at this type of information and say that's the domain of HR. But why can't finance, which is the custodian of data, which has all the skills, play an advisory role? Another example that Project Octave is doing in the John Keel's group in the insurance industry is they are looking at premiums, insurance premiums, and based on certain trends, they can predict now which are the premiums that are likely to lapse based on certain patterns. And then they are able to obviously take corrective action and interventions to change that outcome for the benefit of the company. So there is a lot of business benefits that you can add if you can start to optimize your use of data and of information. I see tremendous potential in this area of data science. Fourth, coming to the area of a connected world. Integration. Today we have systems that have a host-to-host connection with the bank. So when it comes to payments, from our ERP system, we are able to directly upload a file and it gets transferred to the bank. Signatures are automatically fixed electronically to the checks, or they do automatic fund transfers through slips or RTGS, or now they have the SWIFT methodology. So the days of printing checks, of signing, all of those are long gone through host-to-host integration with banks. We are also connected to suppliers. I'm very proud that we rolled out the country's first supplier portal. We call it Supplier Mate. And a very interesting business challenge. We were handling as a shared service a very complex accounts payable process for a company which was in the inbound destination management industry, or inbound tour operators. So they would have tourists coming in whom they would then direct to different hotels. They would arrange transporters, and then these hotels would send in their supply invoices, and the transporters would send their invoices. And we as a shared service were tasked with making those payments. And we found it was a very painful process because there were so many disputes. They would send the invoice by post. Then we would say this is not a proper VAT invoice, return it back by post. Then there would be some, they would resend it, and then there would be a small dispute. They would have invoiced for 10 packs, and we would say, our business would say, no, it's only 9 packs. And you return the invoice back again by post. Now, by then, your hotel is furious. They haven't got paid for months. The client's reputation suffer. It was a very inefficient process. So what did we do? We thought of the idea of a supplier portal. We looked at some of the best companies in the world, and we developed a system like that. And the supplier could see their purchase orders online. They could upload electronic invoices against the PO. They could also see disputes. We had a color-coded traffic light system with red. If there was a dispute, then they could chat with the operational person and resolve any disputes online. We created a Facebook type profile so that everyone was comfortable. They could also see the status of their settlements on mobile. Now you're suddenly giving them visibility. Earlier, they didn't know. It was a black hole. They didn't know the status of their payment. They would call, they would email, they would be writing all over, frantic to get their settlements. But now with the mobile and online, they knew the status of their payments. If they are paid, they get an alert. And our supplier satisfaction went through the roof. Now, can you see, this is an innovation that came through connectivity, through connecting a company's systems with suppliers. Similarly, you can connect with customers. So it's a connected world. We must look at integrations, integration with inland revenue, integration with customs. And today, most systems with APIs and have the connectivity potential for integration. The fifth element that I would like to talk about is controls. We must never forget that as finance people, we are the custodians, we are the protectors of the assets of the company. And in this whole integrated, IT-centric, automated world, we must not forget the aspect of controls. And it's very important not to forget the basics. So when it comes to designing all of these systems, make sure the finance head must make sure that there are adequate checks and balances, there are controls, and that we still can break it down into double entries, into controls, because we are still the custodians of assets. So in this respect, I think a skill that is very, very important is process map, being able to design processes, put it down on paper, look at controls, look at checks and balances, see where the audit points are. And a very important element of controls these days is cyber threats. Post-pandemic, we've seen a big rise in hacking, in fraudulent emails, in phishing attacks, stolen credentials, ransomware. Now, whilst this is the domain of IT, as I said, finance people are the custodians of assets. So it's very important to make sure that we are educated on cyber threats, on vulnerabilities, on information security and confidentiality practices. And we need to work closely with IT to make sure that in this whole game of automation, this connected world, that basic controls exist, that security is kept uppermost. So you need to be the one to be flagging security controls, making sure that there are very strict procedures on passwords, on regular usage, change of passwords, all staff being trained on information security, on threats. So many finance people in our group, sometimes they get emails saying, from perhaps even from the chairman, right? And these hackers and all of them are today very sophisticated. They seem to have information which is very, very relevant. Story that our finance director was telling us is he got an email one day from the chairman saying make this payment, and in normal course of events he would not have questioned it, he would have just acted on it. But in this case, what happened was he had just come from a meeting with the chairman, and he never mentioned it. So he called back, and he had never sent that email. And then additional controls are brought in to make sure that external emails were flagged and additional checks and balances introduced. So hackers are very sophisticated, very very savvy, and we must be, as finance professionals, one step ahead. So some important skills that you will need to really invest in is on maybe ISO 27001 related standards, on information security, some of the threats, cyber threats, so that we keep one step ahead. Now, coming to the area of audit, that's another fantastic area where technology can really help you. Now, traditionally, we would have audits once a year. They would come, take your files, look at a sample of different elements, and then give you some feedback on the controls. But today in my organization, we have a big data tool called Forestpin, which sits on top of the ERP system. And any unusual transaction is immediately flagged. It could be a transaction which is posted on a Sunday, which is unusual. Or the value, it in minutes or in seconds, really, it looks at the last 3 years. And any unusual value is immediately picked up and an email sent to the CFO and CEO. Or it could be a duplicated transaction, very similar to one that was posted previously. So now you can see that technology has permitted what used to happen once a year as a post-mortem, as an online real-time check. Previously, what used to happen on sample basis now happens across your entire document volume. So audit also has immense potential, and today we have got audit systems where previously we would sign paper once a quarter. Our compliance statements today, that is automated. The audit reports, follow-ups, all of that, the working papers are automated in audit systems. The audit reports and the feedback and the resolution of audit items, all of this is maintained online, paperless systems. So just to summarize, the areas that I covered were the ERP systems and making the best use of that. I went through a checklist of items like bank reconciliations, payment runs, reports. The second topic was robotic process automation or intelligent automation. The third was data science. Fourth was integrations and the connectivity that we need to foster. The next was controls, particularly in the area of cyber threats and vulnerabilities. And finally, we looked at how technology can play a role in audit. Now, for each of these to be facilitated, we as finance professionals need to get ready with a few things. Number one is in terms of the skills and knowledge. Now, ACCA, if you look at the 7 quotients of the future accountant, you will see digital skills. Right? So we need to equip ourselves with digital skills like ERP systems, Power BI, robotic process automation, process mapping. And today, all of these are available today at your fingertips. Right? So there is really no excuse for not equipping ourselves. ACCA has a lot of programs. There are so many other programs like Microsoft, not very expensive. So I would really encourage you to invest some time in equipping yourself with these digital skills. Second thing is we need to be lifelong learners. If you're not spending 5 hours a week in reading, you are not being responsible with your career, because things are developing so quickly. You need to spend time in continuous professional development. It's one of the tenets of ACCA, and rather than it being imposed, we must embrace continuous professional development. Also, in terms of mindsets, we must position ourselves as the future finance professional, someone who is the key advisor to the CEO, to the board. So in order to do that, it needs to be someone who is a master of communication, someone who can communicate well, who can convince well. Now, traditionally, we as finance people are not known for that, right? We are known as back office people whom nobody likes, the person who always, fights with marketing, cuts budgets, unpleasant people without a smile on their face. But I'm saying the new finance person is someone who is a very exciting role, who can sell things, who can negotiate, who comes up with creative solutions, someone who sees the future, who is passionate about business, who's advising, who is a great communicator. So we need to be people who equip ourselves with that personality, with that flair, with those communication skills. And I find, a lot of accountants today are investing time in Toastmasters. And that is something I would really recommend for every finance professional. Because if you are a master communicator, you need to be able to tell, paint the picture, show them the future, convince them, convince a board, stand up before a CEO and the board and present effectively. And we need to be people who are flexible, people who understand the business, people who are open, people who can look at options, listen, hear out operations, not people who are closed, one track, difficult. Be a modern CFO would be my encouragement. So I will just leave it there and be very happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Jihan. I think hats off to you. We could notice that you're still not feeling well, and still have taken out time. Thank you very much for your commitment and devotion. Um, we have a few questions and comments, and in the meanwhile, I will expect more people to send in their questions as well. So if we can go one by one. Tanzeel Ahmed has written a question saying, sourcing of RPAs, where to look for, how to get the bots, efficiency reviews of product might be, and a few interesting questions. So I think it's a long question, but if you can answer this part first, and then I can pick up the rest.
As a shared service, the way that we are approaching this, and thank you for the question, is threefold. Number one is we are building our own center of excellence within our own shared service. So we are training some of our own team, some of our own IT folk in RPA, so that they can develop some smaller bots themselves. And we have found that, for instance, we had a simple thing where HR would send out a birthday greeting to anyone who was celebrating their birthday, and we automated that process. And my own level 1 team, they did a 3-month program with UiPath, which is free. And these are not people who were trained or who had any knowledge of RPA, but after this 3-month program, they are developing their own bots. And that is how that technology is moving. It's not going to be the domain of IT and pure techies going forward. It's going to be a bot on every desk, where each one of us will be able to design our own bots, right? So a PwC and some other big companies, they are training every member of the staff on RPA technology. Right? That's the investment that they are making, and that's the approach I want to take. So I want to make sure that this technology is democratized. So every member of the staff will be training. We'll develop our own center of excellence so that we can support our bots. For the more important, more difficult projects, we are then hiring or we are contracting with RPA implementers. In Sri Lanka, we have several companies that implement RPA. So in your region, please look out for companies and start with a small project so that you can learn and get a feel from it and hopefully build a bit of confidence. So that's your second layer, right? So you've got your internal layer, you've got your second layer where you are supported by an external. The third layer is a consultancy company. So we have signed up actually with a company that are the agents for UiPath here. And what they will do is they will provide us some consultancy and some external validation on the technology and on the design that is being used to develop these bots, and they will also sell us the licensed bots. A word of caution, some of these bot licenses are pretty expensive, right? But there is a payback if you do it well. So the approach that we've taken is this something we can afford not to do? If you look at pure ROI at this moment, the ROI numbers don't look that great. But believe me, with rising costs, salary costs, and the increasing difficulty in getting talent, you will need RP. So if you are wise, you must start. I hope that gave you a sense of our approach and how you can set about it. Thank you.
Okay, and the second part of the same question is about data science. And Tanzil says that it needs a good amount of time to invest apart from the certifications. It would be nice to know the possible starting points in this particular field, i.e. data science, and the usage of programming languages like Python.
Yes. So the starting point is with Power BI, right? We are trying to train all our staff because the first step in data science is learning how to visualize data. That's the starting point for us. Thereafter, the staff who are good at statistics, whoever, there are various programs now in Sri Lanka. There's University of Kelaniya program, 4-month program on data science. So you can look at sending some of your staff for some quick programs. Today, the way that education is going is more nano degrees, not very long 2-year, 3-year programs, but a couple of weeks, months. So you will find a lot of online programs, some of them free, right, from very good universities. Look at equipping some of your team who have a natural bent numbers on some of these programs. You can also partner with a company that does data science, that does analytics, so that you get a sense of what a project looks like. So you can give them, for instance, a small case study. Something that we rolled out for one of our clients based in the UK. They are in the lending industry. We took a case of people who regularly delay in settling debts. So we did a simple case. So take a simple case, a real world problem like that, and see whether we can come up with certain predictions about the risk areas. Who are the debtors likely to default? Come up with a simple use case like that, and see whether you can work with a consultant. All the big four, of course, do support that. So that you get a feel of what this looks like, what the outcome looks like, and then you can keep building on.
Okay, thank you. The next question, I'm skipping a few comments in between, but jumping on to the next question. And I would, in fact, invite participants to raise hands also if they have any question to ask. So rather than just me reading it, it'll be nice to hear from some of the participants who would want to put in some questions. So for example, Usman Muhammad, it would be nice if you can raise your hand and I can unmute you and you can ask the question yourself. It'll be more elaborate that way. But jumping on to Muhammad Hashim's question, Muhammad Hashim is saying, that data science is more dependent on practice. I truly agree with Jihan that in future accountants will be data scientists. But which additional skill do you prefer in addition to Power BI in order to equip ourselves with this valuable skill? I think Jihan mentioned Power BI as a starting point. So in effect, the question is, what is the next step after you've mastered Power BI?
Some of the people I know are learning Python. I'm not an expert on that. Some of them are also learning, are going for data science programs. And there are a range of programs on offer. I think ACCA has some, sometimes your local universities may have. So once you've got maybe a Power BI foundation, Python is definitely something that people are experimenting with, and also registering yourself for a data science program of a 3 to 4 month thing will give you a good start.
Great, thank you very much. And Jihan, you're right, ACCA has a data science program on offer. So if members are interested, you can definitely go and check your learning management system and see the certificates and diplomas available. So uh, these were all the questions that we had from the participants. Is there anyone else who wants to ask a question by raising hands? We can unmute them. Any questions? Okay, I think in that case, we gave our participants their um, 28 minutes back, but I'm sure this was an excellent conversation for you to find the thread and then continue your journey onto these very important developments, very important skill development that you need to focus on. So thank you very much, Jihan, once again for taking out time. We wish you the best of health to you and your family, and hope to once again, get an opportunity from you participating in another session, you talking to our members. I think it was really, really nice and informative. Thank you very much for your participation, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, we call it a day. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you very much, Harun, and thank you all. It's an absolute privilege. Look forward to staying in touch. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you very much.
Bye.